It began as nothing more than a passing recognition, the kind of flicker the mind performs when it sees something familiar but unimportant, a repeated face in a crowded metro, someone too generic to notice and too consistent to forget. He didn't pay attention at first. Cities are full of doubles. Faces repeat. Shapes overlap. It's normal to misread familiarity as memory. But then it happened again. And again. Always in motion, always surrounded by people, and yet always the same man, always motionless, always fixed in place like some structural detail of the space around him. The first time had been outside a train station, early morning, people rushing past, their bodies dragging the cold with them like wet fabric. He remembered noticing a tall man standing beside a lamppost, not doing anything, not checking his phone, not smoking, just standing, hands at his sides, back straight, gaze unclear. He didn't think much of it. Until the next day, across town, different time, different setting, another crowd, another rhythm of human motion, and there he was again. Same posture. Same clothes. Same stillness. At first, he rationalized. It had to be someone else. Or just the shape that stuck in his mind. But the precision of it became too specific to ignore. The man was always in a neutral pose, always slightly taller than those around him, always wearing dark gray, no logos, no color, just absence. No interaction. No movement. And most of all, no reaction to being looked at. Soon, it became impossible to unsee him. Bus terminals. Train platforms. Escalators. Department stores. The crowd could be thin or dense, chaotic or calm, but somewhere, always within a line of sight, was the man. Never walking. Never turning. Never shifting his weight. He wasn't hiding, but he wasn't present either. He existed in parallel, like a piece of reality added in post-production, just enough to be noticed, never enough to be explained. One evening, in a shopping mall thick with artificial light and glass echoes, he caught sight of him again. 3 floors below, standing at the edge of the central atrium, facing no one, eyes lost in distance. He stared for too long. A security guard brushed past him, looked at his face, then glanced down, but saw nothing. "You okay?" the guard asked. He didn't answer. Just blinked. The man was still there. But now, he was facing up. Facing him. He told himself it was a coincidence. That his brain was looping itself, filling in gaps, imposing patterns where none existed. But the recognition wasn't logical, it was visceral, deeper than thought, somewhere near the base of the neck where instinct resides. He began avoiding crowded places. Not because he feared people, but because crowds had become arenas, scenes in which the man could appear, not to interact, not to chase, but to confirm something silently, as if each encounter moved some invisible line closer. Eventually, he started trying to catch him off guard. He would turn quickly in moving crowds, step out from buses in unfamiliar districts, glance into shop windows hoping to spot the man's reflection without being seen himself. But no matter how fast he turned, how random his movement, the man was never caught arriving. He was simply there, already still, already staring into nothing. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the man's position began to move closer. Not drastically. Not dramatically. But closer nonetheless. At first, across the street. Then, on the same sidewalk. Then, standing just beyond a doorway. Never speaking. Never blinking. Still. He stopped trying to avoid him, not because the fear had passed, but because there was no longer a pattern to disrupt, no rhythm to dodge. The man had become something closer than presence, more insistent than sound, more static than silence. He started to appear in places that shouldn't allow for stillness, on escalators, on moving trains, in revolving doors, and yet, even in motion, the man remained unchanged, as if the world around him rotated, shuffled, collided, but he was held in place by something deeper than friction, something older than gravity. And with each new encounter, the space between them shortened, but not in a physical sense. It was the space of attention, of recognition, of something watching and being watched back. There were days when he told himself it was all a fragment of overstimulation, a symptom of urban life devouring the line between individual and repetition, a form of stress hallucination made from faces that resembled each other too closely, but that life thinned each time he spotted the man standing perfectly still in a crowd where everyone else was moving, laughing, turning, blinking. Once, at a crowded crosswalk, he found himself shoulder to shoulder with strangers, waiting for the light to change, and when he glanced sideways, the man was 3 feet to his left, standing, still, tall, unblinking, facing forward, his eyes not scanning, not observing, but fixed, as though what he saw wasn't the street, but something beneath it. And when the light changed and the people surged forward, the man didn't move. He remained planted while the crowd rippled around him like water around stone. He stood beside him. And then, he vanished, not by disappearing, not by fleeing, but by not being there when he turned back again, as though he had never arrived through motion but had always been. That night, he didn't sleep. Not because he feared a dream, but because he feared waking up. He feared what might happen when his thoughts shut off and his mind became porous. The man had never followed him home, never appeared in his building, never crossed into his private spaces, but now, he wasn't sure that privacy meant anything anymore. The man didn't seem bound by walls or time or direction. He appeared where observation was weakest, where the logic of presence began to thin.